Hi everyone, I've got Judith Johnson here today. Judith and I have known each other for 3 years, and it's been a remarkable journey, obviously, getting to know Judith over the last few years. And she's quite happy. Well, she said she's happy to come onto the podcast today. So, Judith, thank you for coming on, and welcome to the Teacher's Point of View podcast.
Thank you, TJ.
If you could just sort of explain to everyone, like, what you sort of a little bit about you, your journey into teaching, why you got into teaching, that'd be great.
Okay, so I've always wanted to be, I'm an English teacher, I've always wanted to be an English teacher, but I didn't pursue that career first. I went into banking and then I went into housing, and then I just felt quite dissatisfied that I wasn't following my own pathway, my dreams. So I then decided to go into teaching. So I started off as a learning mentor and then went into schools, and then from there had encouragement from a really good teacher, and she said, there's so much more you could be doing than what you're doing right now. And I started laughing, and she was like, no. Like, I said, oh, I can't afford it. You know, I have to go back and get a degree and all that. She said, do it. And I did it. And I did it. And I'm on that journey, and I love it.
Fantastic. I mean, just so everyone's aware, what year did you qualify?
2011.
And talk us through your journey. So you've qualified, you start your career in teaching. What kind of school did you start in? And like, where are you now, and how have you got to this point?
Okay, so the starting off point was I started off at a school in Enfield as an NQT. I stayed there for 3 years. I was there and had really good tutelage. My mentor was absolutely fantastic. When I think about it now, she geared me up with, not geared me up, but she set me up with the things that I needed to progress even further into the teaching career. Like, she set me up really fine because she saw my potential from my first teaching at the school. And that first time we had Ofsted who came into my lesson. Now, this was the first time being Ofsteded, and I was an NQT at the time. Anyway, he's coming, I've gone back for feedback, and he says to me, how long have you been teaching? So I said to him, well, I'm an NQT. So he said, we shouldn't have done this lesson. I said, okay, but he says, I want to tell you this anyway. It was good with outstanding practices. And I just felt like, just hearing that alone, first year of teaching, I think that just set me up real nice. And I just felt like I'm doing what I should be doing. So I stayed at the school in Enfield, which was a church school, for 3 years. And then I travelled across the Middle East and went to Dubai to see what it was going to be like to earn that tax-free money. That was the incentive. And when I got there, it was a shock.
In what way? In what way?
Well, I worked in an Emirati school because I felt that going into someone else's country, I didn't just want to go into an international school. I wanted to actually go and see what the indigenous people were like. And so I went into an Emirati school. So it was a hybrid for English curriculum and Arabic curriculum. So it was the first time working in a school where there was a boy side and a girl side. And it was a different experience. For me as a Black woman, it was a different experience from my white counterpart, because I had the boys who couldn't not associate me with their nanny. So there was a lack of respect for me as a Black woman. And I found that really quite hard to deal with. And I just felt that if the school at the time knew that Black teachers would face this, why would they let us come there and be subjected to that? Because I just felt that, why am I suffering racism in another country? It's not even my country. Yeah, the tax-free money, but on the psyche, it just was horrendous, really. And then, because I am insightful, you know, you look beyond the superficial, and there was just a lot of dead behind the eyes. Like, a lot of workers were dead behind the eyes because of the experiences that they were experiencing by the Emiratis. And I just felt like I couldn't fulfill my 2-year contract there. And additionally, they also had teachers that were from not London schools, so outside of London. So you've got, though, really, really outside of London, and they themselves weren't used to Black teachers neither. So you had that as well. So as well as from the Emiratis, you actually had it from teacher counterparts who looked at you like you were less than them. And I just felt like I couldn't do it. Maybe, if I was younger or whatever, yeah, but it wasn't worth it for me. But I know that there's some people there that are still there that have had lovely experiences, but just for me, it wasn't right for me.
So then what happened? So you came back and...
So I came back, and then I was on the way to work, and I swear phone call came through. But anyway, I came back, I wasn't secure, so I was looking for jobs, and I went through an agency, and I ended up at a school that I was picked for, another school in Enfield by a previous head of year or deputy head, and she saw my name come up and she was like, I'll go there. But that school, a comprehensive school, was the worst school that I've ever worked at. There was just no behaviour management. The kids were out of control, and the way that they wanted to speak to you was just unacceptable. And for myself at that school, a student had grabbed me and scratched me. And when I went to say that, this is what's taken place, the assistant head teacher said to me, we don't see any scratches on your skin, so we don't believe that she scratched you. I was like, I just started in September. By February, I was gone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I just think that it happens. It just happens. I think sometimes you go where you just need to go, and then you see. And then I spoke to you, I believe. Yes, that day in 2017. And I was having all kinds of issues, as you know, like we were supposed to get an interview and I had to cancel because my mum had cancer, and you were like, no, you can still do this. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, because it's just so much. But I prepared the lesson already. And then you were like, no, go on, Judith, you can do that. And so I went, and I was at Holloway for however long that term was.
Yeah.
I don't know, 6 months, 4 months, something like that.
Yeah.
And that was
April, wasn't it?
Yeah, and so that was a really good experience. It was a really good experience at that school. It had, like, all schools have their own issues. Like there's no school that's free from any kind of issue. But again, I just found that school as well, behaviour wasn't under control, and I just felt that in order for you to be able to be an effective teacher, the behaviour management needs to be under control, and it needs to be school led by the top down, and I just don't think it should be that they only listen to the top. Everyone, all educators should be able to get behaviour under control. And then had an operation, had 2 operations. I was out of action for a bit, getting my health back. And then I called you just out of the blue. I was like, you know what, I'm going to call Teach. I called you out of the blue. I said, I'm looking for a school in a certain borough or in London. And you was like, I've got the right place for you. And I've been there 3 years. So thank you.
Fantastic. It's been a remarkable journey for you, hasn't it? I know Judith personally quite well, and obviously, like she said, we've known each other for about 3 years, and she's been on one hell of a journey. Like, she's had a lot of challenges against her, and at every stage she's been able to overcome it. I mean, she's had times where she didn't know she was going to pull out. She didn't know she was going to make it into work at one point. And she's had to battle some hard times to continue her career in teaching. I mean, like, with every challenge that you faced, Judith, because you have faced quite a few difficulties, haven't you?
Sure. Yeah.
With obviously your mum's cancer, and then your operation, you were quite unwell. And what gave you the drive to get back into teaching?
I love teaching. It's a vocation. You have to have the passion and the tenacity for teaching, because teaching is not an easy profession to be in. And I think you just have to know that you want to make a difference in a young person's life. And being an English teacher as a core subject, I'm definitely making a difference. And I think with teaching, you have to be yourself. You have to, you know, there's this thing that you have to have this facade and you have to be this way. But children are very receptive to individuals that are in front of them, and they're like truth detectors. Like they can sniff you out whether you're for them or against them. And for myself personally, being a mother has also helped, and having children in the education arena as well has definitely helped my cause as well, because I was able to understand that sometimes when a child is presenting difficulties to you, you have to look beyond the difficulties. You have to go to the root and see what it is, why they're acting out that way. So I'll give you an example. So at school, we have to meet and greet the students by the door. So that gives you a time to just check their uniforms and to make sure that they're presentable. So I have my hands by the door, so they just can't walk in. Like they have to say good morning or good afternoon, and then they come in. But that gives me a time to look at the student that's coming into my room. And so I'll pull a child out of the line and I'll let everyone else go in, and I'll say to them, I said, is this the first time that we're seeing each other? And they'll say yes. So I said, so what happened? Why you're presenting yourself to me like this? And they'll be like, oh, I had a bad lesson, and miss or sir or da-da-da, whatever. But I tell them that was that lesson. Don't bring that energy into my lesson, because we're all starting off and, you know, we want to have a great lesson. So you're not going to disrupt my classroom. So you stay outside. You know, usually they stay for about 30 seconds, give themselves to compose themselves, get themselves together, and they'll be able to come in and have an enjoyable English lesson. So those are, you know, those things, because I'm perceptive, like I know if something's gone wrong in a previous lesson, because you can just tell by energy, you know.
Absolutely. Like, so just talk me through the challenges that you've had. I mean, you mentioned in the Middle East you had difficulties. Obviously, you felt as an ethnic minority it was challenging, right? I mean, do you feel? I think with everything that's happened this year, especially like with the Black Lives Matter movement, do you find that there were challenges naturally as an ethnic minority compared to people that were the majority?
Absolutely. I think not just within the teaching profession, but like I said, I've had other professions as well. Colour is always a barrier. It doesn't matter that they say that it's not, because you have conscious and unconscious bias. And with unconscious bias, some people don't, that's why it's called unconscious, they don't recognise what they're doing. But sometimes unconscious bias does really roll into conscious bias. And sometimes people are aware of what they're doing. As you know, because I got you to sign my form so that I could do my masters. Do you remember? I asked you to be a referee for me, and so I've completed my masters. I did it in 2 years. It was supposed to be a year, but I did it in 2 years because I had serious health issues. And even having that masters, that paperwork behind me, doors are still closed. They're still closed. And it doesn't matter that my paperwork is recognised and all the attributes and achievements that I have made through teaching, I still am stuck like that at times, you know. And that's quite difficult, because it should be on merit, it should be on what you're presenting, it should be on your accolades, or, you know, the fact that it's cost X amount of money to do a master's, that moves you into the assistant head bracket. But because I'm considered other, I haven't been able to penetrate that yet.
Is it something that you wanted to do within your teaching career?
Sorry?
Is it something you wanted to do within your teaching career?
Well, I don't know really, because in the beginning, yes, obviously everyone's ambitious, and I've had my children, so I can just really move into my teaching career without any hindrance, because I've already had kids, so I'm not going to stop and take maternity leave and stuff like that. So I just felt that I needed the masters to see what it could do for me. So I viewed it as like an experiment really, because I know what it does, but I needed to know what it was going to do for me and how it was going to help me navigate into senior leadership roles, and if it was valued, because I've got it. I'm going to leave that open, because I don't know, but just for me personally, I know that it's still hard. Even with everything that's gone on at this moment, Black Lives Matter, the outcry, it's still quite difficult. And I just think that going back to school was even more difficult because we were going back on uncertain times. We didn't know what you're going to find, what it's going to be like, because we was already had to go into isolation, obviously, from COVID when we locked down from March. So then the Black Lives Matter has happened, and yes, the school sent out things that we need to do, and obviously it's about educating the young people. But I didn't want to regurgitate the death of George Floyd. What I wanted to do was get my students to understand terms like discrimination, privilege. What is the 2010 Equalities Act and how does it help you? What is prejudice? Have you experienced bias? Have you been biased yourself? I needed to do those terms, and I gave a list of these terms so that the young people can educate themselves as well. Yes, the media is flooding you with the knee on the neck, absolutely. But I didn't want to do that, because you need to know what bias is. What is privilege? I just said, what is privilege, and have you experienced privilege before? And it was really quite enlightening what came back, that, most people, regardless of colour, have experienced some type of prejudice or discrimination as young as they are, because, these are secondary school children. So within their own cohorts and with their own social groups, they would experience all of that. But I think it's about educating, not just because I'm a teacher of English that I'm just going to do that. It's about educating the masses. You need to know what the 2010 Equality Act is. You need to know these things. And so I just felt I had a duty to do that. And then I shared it with the English department as well. If they wanted, they could have that as well. And, because they hadn't thought about it like that. They hadn't thought about these terms and how they relate to certain ethnic minorities who are experiencing these things. So like I said, I didn't mind sharing my work because I think it's about educating. I'm an educator, not just a teacher. And there's a big difference, if you know what I mean. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So in those days where you felt that the odds were against you and it wasn't going to progress in the way that you wanted, or for whatever reason, and whether it be for your color, for the color of your skin, or just in terms of the way that the schools were set. I mean, like how difficult was it for you not to just think, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. What is the point? How many days did you want to quit?
I've never wanted to quit teaching because I love it. Like I'm real passionate about teaching. Like I just feel, like I said, it can't just be a job for you. You have to love what you do, because if you don't love, you will get tired getting up every day, because it is a hard slug. It is really, 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 really hard. So there was never a time when I felt that, oh, I'm going to come out of teaching, maybe secondary education, and just maneuver maybe into university or college, because I can do, but they don't pay as well. At the level that I'm at, I will be taking a loss. So, that's not for now. I just feel that it's not about, okay, so the colour of my skin is the colour of my skin. I cannot change that. I cannot change who I am. I cannot change the ambition that I have or the love that I have for teaching. And it's about giving the students in Inner London, because I'm an Inner London person and I work in an Inner London school and I live in Inner London. It is about giving back to the students. Because it's easy when you're teaching to then say, well, you know what, I can go into a more prestigious school, or I can go into private school, or I could take those skills and manage that way. But for me, if the kids need someone who's riding for them, who has their best interests at heart, who wants them to learn the expectations of doing well so that you can benefit in life. Their expectations that they feel that I've come from some silver spoon, or, I've actually had this glorious, lovely middle class life. Let's just say it like that. Yeah. But I haven't. Working class, slugged, got my degree, you know, went on and did various other things. But I love teaching, and I just feel that I am their role model, just like I'm my children's role model. I'm their role model, and they need to look at me and know that they're able to achieve anything that they want to achieve, as long as they work hard. I mean, in English, you know, what I do is they were like, Miss, sometimes we don't know about, you know, the degree, how to get the degree, or what point it is, or stuff like that. So we actually do like a lesson on how to access college, where you are on the grading system, how to access university. And I talk them through the things that they need to know, because these are the skills that are going to equip them for later on in life. You know, and also lots of young people are scared to present in class, they're nervous and whatever, but presentation skills are fundamental, because in college you have to present, in university you have to present, in life you have to present. So my thing is, if you can get to grips with these skills from now, it will serve you well for later on. And that's so I'm always gearing them up for later on, because we're just 5 years, but you've got another 2 years, and then you've got another 3 or 4 years, and then you might have another year, you know. So it's about equipping them with lifelong learning skills as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me about the last 7 months then. How difficult has it been to be a teacher?
Oh my days, like, it's just, listen, so COVID has happened. I'm vulnerable, so I'm classified as vulnerable. And so that first time when we've heard of COVID in March, I'd already taken the time off to be home, because I wasn't sure what was going on. I was recovering, or have recovered from my operation, but health is so very important. So I stayed home for a week, and then the following week I received a letter saying, you've got to stay home anyway. So then I wasn't able to be in school from all that time. So I missed out on a lot of things, but we had to then work from home. And that was an adjustment, having to get this work-life balance, because usually you come home, you're so glad to be home, like you're not trying to do no schoolwork. Now schoolwork is invading your life, like, and all that. And it was quite difficult adjusting. Nice being at home, nice not being in the hustle and bustle, but adjusting and having to do lessons and lots of other administrative bits as well, and obviously teaching remotely, you know, as we did. So it wasn't an easy time, only because of the uncertainty of COVID. So then going back in September, obviously we only had the 6 weeks, because I think people were under the misconception that teachers were just living life whilst everyone else was at home. But actually we was working harder at home than you are at school, because when you're going in, teaching is natural. So you already have your lessons, you already know what you're doing, you're just going with the flow of teaching. But being at home, it's a different ball game. So then you had to do more administrative tasks, such as completing schemes of learning, or completing training, mandatory training. There was just so many different things, attending courses, like still having briefing and all those things. Everything was just done remotely. So it was difficult. So when the 6 weeks came, it was real nice just to kind of relax and stuff like that. But then going back, uncertainty, because you don't know what to expect. Obviously with the Black Lives Matter, you don't know what's the atmosphere is going to be that you're walking into. Is there a divide? Like it was so uncertain. And incidents have happened, and the way they've been addressed, you know, it's always good to get two sides, or both sides of a story. I've already explained to you, but I won't go into that here, about two sides of a story, so that you know why people are operating that they are. And I would just say that sometimes senior leaders, they try to please everybody, but a group will always not be happy with an outcome. You know, it's just talking about leadership, and I just feel that we have to have enough insight to know that there's always two sides, but it's astute enough to pick out what's right and what's not right, you know. And I think that you have to do that. You have to do that, because sometimes it's like it's a game that you're playing. And it just feels that you get to a certain point, and then the goalposts are moved. So then you get to the next point, and then the goalpost is moved again. So sometimes it feels like you're always trying to get there, and you can't. But not because you don't have what you need. It's because maybe it's not being recognised. And I experienced that coming back into the school.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to just kind of recognise a couple of things that you've said. One of the things being that you're vulnerable, right? I mean, you've obviously had health issues in the past, and obviously you're back in school in September and putting your life at risk every single day going into school. And I think obviously one of the big parts of me wanting to do this podcast was to make people aware. You know, like we've spoken a lot about NHS over the news, and a lot of clapping that was done every Thursday, but I think people are forgetting how much teachers are doing at the moment. You know, you're risking your lives every day in the front line. My sister's having to sort of like avoid coming over to our parents' house, and you're making sacrifices every single day to make sure that you can educate the future generation, and the future economy depends on it, doesn't it? I mean, what would you say to those people that think that you've had the last 7 months off?
Well, like I've said, you're not a teacher, so you don't know, and it's okay to talk. You know, everyone's always a critic until you're actually doing the job yourself. And I'm going to say that teachers are human beings with families. You know, whether they're vulnerable, you know, some have small children, some have parents that are elderly, some are just vulnerable within their own selves. And it is scary having to go to school and not knowing what you're going to face. So at this moment, we're in bubbles, and my biggest bubble is about 30. Maybe the smallest one is 22. So key stage 3, they stay static. So we go to them. So they'll stay in the same class all day. And as teachers, you go to them. So there's no I don't have a regular teaching room anymore. So I move around. And then for key stage 4, they move. Yeah. So I teach 2 times in my old classroom, and another 2 times I teach for year 11s in another classroom. So out of the 4 lessons, I only teach twice in my classroom, which
4 lessons per day.
Yeah, no, that's 4 times for the week, because it's a 6 lesson. It's a 6 lesson day. So you're moving around all the time, and then you have to transition. So when the classes are over, they want you to stand out there in the hallway, moving the kids along. So at transition points, or at when it's time to go for break or lunchtime. But being vulnerable, it's quite difficult. It's not comfortable standing where there's so many kids coming towards you. Not that they're coming towards me like that, but, you know, they're moving in the direction to go down. But it's a lot of traffic. You know, and you have to weigh up. Yes, the school needs teachers to be there and usher in the kids outside, because there's no kids allowed in the school at all during break time or lunchtime. But in saying that as well, I have my own health issues, and so I'm vulnerable also. So I wasn't feeling comfortable having to transition like that. So I sorted it. Like, I had a conversation, because as a vulnerable, I have a risk assessment that was carried out, and, you know, so you get your shield. I don't know if you've seen them. So the shield that goes on like that, and obviously you get a antibacterial gel. You might as well just bring your own, you know, and there's wipes so that children can wipe down the surfaces, and you can wipe down your surfaces and stuff like that. So it really is an adjustment. So it's not just uncertain for the young people, it's also uncertain for staff as well. And all schools are having outbreaks, because it's not something that you can contain. You know, you're trying your best, but people are outside of school as well, mixing with other people and stuff like that, and it's a spreadable infection, so it's easy to spread. And so you have the outbreaks, And if you are a teacher that has taught a student that has tested positive, you have to go home, you have to isolate, and then you have to get a test, and then you have to wait anxiously for those results to come back, and then you're isolated because you don't want your family around you because you don't know if you have COVID-19 or not. And I experienced that just last week. So I went in on Monday, a child had tested for COVID, received an email, I'd gone in, and as I'm leaving to go out the door, I've been told, can you cover your lessons? Of course I can cover my lessons from my house. Of course I can. So obviously, because you're still expected, your classes still need to be covered. And the thing is, you feel a bit guilty because although I don't have COVID-19 and I was willing and ready and able to work on Monday, but something out of my own control with a student, you then have to go home. So then you still have to prepare your lessons because teachers are teaching your classes and you don't want them to miss out on any more learning. So you're sending in proper lessons that I would teach myself.
Talk to me through the emotions that you were feeling when you were told that the child had COVID and you had to self-isolate.
Well, the thing was, it was like a trying to guessing game, right? Because I was in briefing and you're hearing that the child has it and like you're wondering. So then you go back into the office and I'm looking around at the teacher. So I'm wondering who teaches this young person, because you know who's in and who's not and you know why. But then I was like, let me just check my email. And I checked my email. And it was me, and I read the email out to the rest of the teachers in there, and they were like, "You've got to go home," and I'm like, "Yeah, I've just got to go home." Like, do you see the smile on my face? I was like, okay. I was like, okay, because what can I do? It's Monday. I'm up. I was having an observation third period as well, so I'm wanting this to happen, and now you're sending me home. But the good thing was I'd already sent my PowerPoint over to my line manager so she could see what my lesson was going to be like anyway. So, and then you go and you have to go home and you just, and then obviously the senior leaders, obviously they're emailing to make sure that things are okay. And, one was surprised that I had ordered a test already, but HR had already let them know that I'd been in contact with somebody because I'm vulnerable. So it wasn't hard for me to get my test. It came the next day. And it came on Tuesday. And then by Thursday, the results after the close of business had come through. And it was a relief to know that you don't have it, because my family went around. Like that, because you and the thing is, I'd had my family over on Sunday, and to know that now on Monday, because there was a child in my class that I could possibly have it, a lot of emotions go through. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. It's scary, isn't it? Especially because you've got like health conditions in the past, I mean, it's quite a scary thing. And in some ways, it must be quite scary going back after that as well, because you tested negative, didn't you? And it's like, well, I tested negative. It means I could probably I can actually get it still. So you're still kind of feeling anxiety about going in, and it's like you've got a moral obligation as a teacher to sort of educate your students, and it's almost like you're balancing your life with your profession, and it's like, what do you do? And especially for anybody that's looking to get into teaching now, I mean, how scary is it going to be for them to get into the profession, I mean, do you feel like more could be done from either the schools or from the government, like to protect teachers or to support teachers and the students in a different way? Like, what could be done?
I do understand about the economy, and I do understand about keeping schools open. I definitely do understand that. But it felt in the beginning that teachers are just glorified babysitters, so that parents and carers can go to work, and then you've got your child situated there. And they made the profession seem that we were unable to catch COVID. you know, we like got some superhuman powers, like teachers have superhuman powers that COVID goes past you. And it doesn't. And it is, you are anxious. And the anxiety takes a toll in a different way, because in our English office, which is a fantastic office, we're able to bounce off each other. You know, when someone's feeling low, or, you know, we talk through things, we are our support network, you know. And I think that being in a school where that happens is invaluable, because I also know what it's like when you work in a school and people are cliquey and there's a divide. So it's real nice in our office. So as we're all, you know, educators in different forms, it's nice to be able to speak about different things that we can do. Of course the government could do more. We already know that it's about the economy. We already know that it's about, it sounds real horrible, but what do we really care about? The working class, you know, because we knew that Eton and other schools, they weren't going back at all, and that they were only going to have online lessons. We knew this because we, as you know, you think about, well, that minister, that member of parliament's child goes to a private school. So what's that private school doing? Completely the opposite of what they're doing for state schools. So get in there, do what you have to do, because you're exempt as a teacher. It doesn't get you. And I just felt like it was very blasé, because we are humans and we are valuable, not just to the school, but to our own families, you know. And I just feel that I understand that they're safeguarding the children, obviously, so that the children are static, so that we're key stage 3, so that there's not a lot of movement. But I don't think they really thought about the impact that it has on the teachers, having to move from class to class to class to class, having been used to one classroom. So you have your laptop, you have your pens, you have like a crate that you're dragging with you everywhere that you go. And it just feels, yes, you're having to go with the flow because you have no other choice. But how comfortable is it? It's not, because I'm stepping into a classroom that a teacher's already been in as well. And you don't know who that teacher's mixed with in their previous lesson. So you don't really know. It's like potluck, really. You don't really know what's going to happen, but you just say, well, do you know what? God be with me. And I'm going to go, and I'm just going to hopefully come home with no COVID-19 symptoms, because that's all you can do, really. That's all.
And what's the general consensus within schools and within the teacher community? Like, how do they feel about everything that's gone on and the way that they've been treated through this pandemic?
You know, and I know that already, if you're already dissatisfied with the way things are moving in a school, something like this will just compound it even more. So I just think that a lot of teachers are not liking what is happening. We're all alert, but we have no choice, because this is our profession. We are government employees, you know, so we are paid by DfE. So you have to go and do what you need to do. But as individuals and human beings, you have to safeguard your own self. If you don't feel well, you don't go to work. You have to put yourself first, because if you don't put yourself first, it could have such a detrimental effect on the students, yourself, your colleagues, your family. And I think that the pandemic has shown me that it's not worth, if you don't, like usually when you don't feel well, you'll still drag yourself in to work. We all do, you know this already. We drag, you know, you don't make a phone call unless you're really not really well. But I just think now, where health is such a big issue and people are dying. I've lost an uncle who died from COVID-19. So, you know, it affects families, it affects you. So for me, if I don't feel well or I don't need to be in, I'm not going to be in, because I have my own children. I have a life outside of teaching. Teaching is just one part of my life, you know, and you have to get this work-life balance. You have some people who are not vulnerable, so they don't see it the same way that I see it. They're okay to be there. They don't see what the fuss is. But unless you have a health condition or you live with somebody that has a health condition, you won't really understand. There's a lot of teachers that are not part of the ethnic minority groups that are hit more by COVID-19. You've seen the data already. You know, black males are getting COVID-19 a lot more than other males. You know that the BME community are getting it more, COVID-19 more, because of the systematic racism and institutional racism that happens. And so a lot of them don't go to the hospital because they're scared of the hospitals. They're scared of what will happen once they go into the hospitals. So they don't go, so that they stay home. And I just feel that unless those points are going to be addressed in the political arena, we're always going to have problems, because there's, like I said, systematic racism, institutional racism has to be addressed for things to change. And it comes from the top down, starting with government, because they're the employees. You have to recognise, you know.
And how difficult is it to know that you're employed for certain people that upset you in some ways? Because obviously you're quite passionate about it, aren't you? I mean, it's quite distressing, obviously, the way that you're feeling. And how difficult is it to still be able to get up in the morning and know that you've got a duty of care to these children, you know? Because it's difficult, isn't it? When you're working for someone that you don't necessarily believe in anymore. I'm not talking about your current school. I'm talking about as the government, you know, and you effectively are servants of the public, aren't you? And you've got a moral duty to care for the public, and especially those ones that are from deprived backgrounds. Those children need it even more, right? I mean, you've seen it, and it's bad because like this pandemic has made the gap between the sort of really disadvantaged and the advantaged even bigger, you know. And even more than ever, we need teachers, you know, and it's hard because you on one side you've got a prospective employer that's you're not too fond of, and then the other aspect is like, you know what, I've got to make a difference to these kids. I mean, how do you separate these emotions and still get up for work every morning?
Again, I really have to go back that I love what I do. Like I really love the fact that I'm there and I'm educating the masses. I love that. That's what drives me to get up and go and teach and be the best teacher that I can be. And additionally, I have 3 kids and they finish school now, but I wanted to be the teacher that they would have had at school as well. So that's what drives me, because we have a lot of teachers who don't care. You have that. They're there for the holidays, or they're there for the paycheck, because it is a profession where you can rise and make money. Yeah. So they're not there. But me as an educator, I'm there for them. I tell them, you need to look at me and know that I'm there for you, because I say to the students that what I don't understand is why you're trying to treat me as a teacher who doesn't care about you. And when you pose questions like that to them, you let it resonate. They will come to, they'll come to a natural conclusion. Like, why am I doing that? Because Miss has my back. And that's all it is. You've got problematic students and labeled students, and sometimes the label should or shouldn't be there, but it's down to individual teachers to make a positive impact for these young people. Because I'm sure at school, when you was at school, you remember a teacher that you liked, that was really there for you. What was it about that teacher? They wanted to come to work. They came to work every day. Like, their energy was positive. They made it as engaging as they could do for learning. You felt from them that they genuinely cared about you. And that's what the difference is. Yes, it's about teaching, but I'm an educator. And I've had to educate, and it's about, you give yourself. Like, you've got year 7s who are so needy, they've come back in, that transition period, so then you have to start balancing them out for them to know how it is different at secondary school. You have year 9s who are who've transitioned from year 8 to year 9s, who already are going through bodily transitions too. Mind is all over the place. So they need that calming influence. I've had students who've Miss, they want to hug me, and you're not allowed to, as you know. So you stand there and you're like, no, well, no contact. And they'll be like, but Miss, So then you know what, you just might put a hand on the shoulder or on the arm, just to let them know that, yeah, I know that you're good. Because it's about energy. It's just about knowing. Think about if you have a friend and you know that that friend is there for you. You know that you can go and speak to that friend and that friend is going to give you sound, solid advice. Think about to another friend who you know you're not really going to get what you need from that friend. They're just two different people, but you know who you will go to more. The kids need it. I don't discriminate against any child. Like, a child is a child, a student is a student, and I'm there to have that impact on that child. An example is, I have a year 10 student, and death in the family. But before the death occurred, like in assembly, it was like, this child is going through this, and if this child wants to leave class and go and see Miss Johnson, which is me, let them go. So it's nice to be recognised that that child feels so comfortable with the amount of teachers that's in the school that has that affinity with me, and if they felt that they needed to leave the class, they could come and talk to me. I mean, that's just wonderful. If you know what I mean, it's just wonderful. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the children that you work with at the moment, what, like, in terms of, obviously we've spoken about the sort of disadvantaged families, right? And have you, some of the students that you work with, I mean, are some of them from disadvantaged backgrounds?
Definitely.
Yeah. So just in terms of those children, how much impact has the no free school meals? Obviously, there's this massive campaign about Rashford and sort of encouraging the government to do a U-turn on the decision.
Sure.
And obviously, Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak yesterday said, we're not gonna go back on a decision. We've given 63 million to the council, and the council have said, well, look, it's not enough. You know, like we've only had a certain amount of time that we can carry that through. Like, how important is it for these families to receive those free lunches? Because, you know, every year it's they don't receive free school meals, do they? Over the holidays they don't, right? But why is it that much more crucial for them to receive those free school meals this year?
Because, as you know, there's so many people that have been furloughed. There's so many people that have had to apply for universal credit. You know, incomes that were up are now down. Like there's been a shift in family dynamics, and the children need. So I was a designated teacher of looked after children during the lockdown, and one carer, a grandmother, she wasn't able to get her vouchers. Like, she couldn't do it. Like, she'd spoken to certain social workers and stuff like that and wasn't able to get it that. But because I know how important it is, because she says, I will have to go without, you know, so that if I have to use my own money, these vouchers are there. They should be used. So obviously, you know, did the emails, what needed to do, did a chase up to find out, you know, and got back to her and told her they should all be sorted out now. This is the person that you need to contact. It's about helping. Like I say, I'm a designated teacher of LAC, I'm a teacher of English, but as a human being, I understand how hard it is being in a household, because I know this. Your children are home and they're eating more because you're providing breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks in between. Whereas on a school day, you might provide breakfast, or they might come to breakfast club. There's a lunch provided, whether free school meals or paying lunches, and then you might only have to really provide dinner and maybe snacks. So you can imagine the impact on people's pockets when you have to then find this extra money. And imagine it's 2 kids or 3 kids, and they're growing, and you know, like what they're like, what boys are like when they get between the ages of 12 and 14, like they just grow and grow, and the girls are growing. So you understand the impact. But it's not, I don't think it was the free school meals. I think, to go back to a question that you said before, what I believe the government should have done was every household that has universal credit or receiving universal credit, they should have dropped a laptop or a Chromebook to them. Because what we found was a lot of students were not able to access their homework on Show My Homework. 1, some of them didn't even have Wi-Fi. 2, there might only be 1 laptop, and you're the youngest. Your siblings will have preference over you, or there's no laptop at home and you're doing it off your phone. And it highlighted the deprivation that there is, because we go home and your internet's free, not free, but it's running, you don't think about it, you pay your bill, you move on, you have a device. But these kids don't. And when I went back into school, in case we went into another lockdown, I actually did for my tutor group, I actually did a hands up, who has access to a device. So if we were to go in lockdown, who has access? And out of, 25, 26 students, 10 didn't have access to a device.
Out of how many, sorry?
10.
Out of how many?
About 22, 23.
It's insane, isn't it? Anyone that's kind of in a working class, middle class, and obviously and above, you kind of just expect Wi-Fi to be the common thing now, don't you? And it for some people, it's hard to imagine that they go home and they don't have access to these basic resources that you would think are basic resources, and it's mind-boggling why we're a first world country, and in a first world country, there's children going without food, don't have access to resources like internet or laptops or being able to do work from home, and it's massive, the impact that it's going to have not only on these children but our future of our economy, and the bridge between the disadvantage and the advantage is going to keep getting bigger. Like, how do we solve this problem?
You solve this problem by using the taxpayers' money back in the working class, because we're all taxpayers. There's not one of us here who's working who's not a taxpayer. Remember, they proportion out our money and they take it to central government, and then they distribute it like it was theirs in the first place, but it's actually the people's. And most people in any arena who has sense and has understood the impact of this pandemic would know that the kids need resources, which would be a laptop. Rather than spending all this money on track and trace that didn't work, or sending it to bogus companies that they've done, like a Sweetie factory was there manufacturing PPE or something like that, which was was nothing. Why don't you invest back into the schools? Why don't you invest into the people who need it? We're all taxpayers. This is my money. And I would like my money to go into schools so that a child can have a laptop in their household and Wi-Fi. Take some of that money that you were spending, that vast amount of money, and have allowed people to have internet access. You could have done that. But this is capitalism. And I don't mean, but it's capitalism at its finest. Because the poor are, as you said, the gulf is just getting wider and wider and wider. And how do we circumvent that? Investing. You have these lovely buildings, you have these, teachers, senior leaders who earn really big money, but some of those monies could really be back invested into the children. Because if there's no children, you can't have any teachers. It's not one or the other. You need the children to teach, and you need the teachers to teach the children. So you need to invest in your schools. That's what the government needs to do, need to invest in their schools and stop pretending that there's no rift, that they're doing the best that they can do and that they've got the best interests of working class at heart, because you don't. Something so simple as free school meals, something so simple as Rashford has had to go through this big campaign. The government feel no shame whatsoever in saying no. How many voted against extending the free school meals? But they didn't think of the backlash, because this country is not a third world country, and yet you're allowing only certain members of your population to starve. It's not all the population, certain members of the population to starve. But that's what happens under a conservative government. And everyone knew this. that is the Tory policy. And so whilst we have a Tory government, you can only hope that they're going to look at the workers, they're going to look at the schools, they're going to look at the children, and they're going to do the right thing by them.
Yeah, fair enough. It's worrying, isn't it? Because you look at what the government has done for big businesses. They've obviously stepped in, put in furlough. They had the help to eat out scheme, to basically encourage people to go out and spend money, and so they're willing to do these things for big businesses, and it's the real disadvantaged families that unfortunately are getting overlooked, aren't they? Is basically what you're saying, and it's astonishing because, like I said, we're in a first world country, and these kids need to be protected. They need access to education. These are basic, simple things, and it must be so difficult as a teacher to be spending time with these kids, to go home to the life that you have, knowing that these kids don't have access to Wi-Fi and a hot meal. I mean, how do you separate your personal feelings from the time that you leave the school to when you go home? I mean, how hard is it not to think about those kids?
I mean, I think sometimes you have to proportion out what's really going on here. And the only thing that I can do actively is to be able to help the young people that need to be helped at that given time. And I might be limited in what I can do. As a designated teacher of LAC, I had more, I was able to do more with that role than as a teacher of English. But as an academic tutor, like I highlight, like I have to send it on to the pastoral side, things that I think like I said, the 9-10 kids that wouldn't have laptops. Like they have to let them, you have to let them know so that they can do something about it. It was an eye-opener. I just have to say that to you, because although I'm working in a London school, you see the kids all the time, but this pandemic has really highlighted the disparity that is between the class system. It really has, and that is the working class who are suffering, because how is it possible you can't feed your kids? How is it possible that you're losing the roof over your head, not because of your own self, but because of COVID, and you're not able to pay your bills? How is that? So I think it's more than just a school issue. Obviously, it's a government issue, and until the status quo changes, this is what it's going to be like. I do what I can do to help my students and the students that I come into contact with, because I'm limited in terms of what I can do, because I don't have resources for the school myself personally, so you rely on the school to pick that up and do what they can do for the young people, because it is very difficult. It is very difficult. It's very difficult. Or like, when the government wanted to take away the Oyster cards for the young people, and you're thinking, how? Because how's the parents? It's the taxpayers' money, first of all, that's paying for the Oyster cards. It's my money. I'd rather it go there than anywhere else. And the impact that it will have if parents have to then start paying travel for their children to get to colleges or to get to schools, all those things. It's those things that we need to look at. Those are the issues. So any petition that comes out saving this or saving that, especially the Oyster cards, I definitely signed them, because I feel that we have to come as a collective and do what's right for our young people, because some people don't need the Oyster card because they might have drivers, or they have a parent that drives them, or someone picks them up. But for the majority of students who have to get on the bus, they need the Oyster cards to get on the bus, and some students are coming from borough to borough, so they need to get on a train. They need those things. I think what the school should have done was given free school breakfast. I think they should have opened that up to make sure students are eating without having to pay for it. I think that was one of the initiatives that they should have done as a whole school, that give free breakfast, because I think it's important. Like, the kids need it. And already deprived, it's hard when you're going into a school and you haven't eaten from home, and then maybe you're not eating till break time or lunchtime. At least if you give them some food like breakfast, sets them up for the day, and they're ready to learn. If you can't learn on an empty stomach.
How much do you notice how much do you notice if in a child's attitude when they haven't eaten? Like, is it quite recognisable?
Well, they're ignorant. I mean, I'm just going to put it to you like that. Think about when you're hungry. Think about how you behave. It's the same behaviours. These are human beings, so they exhibit the same behaviour. And you pick up, and then you're like, or they're lightheaded, or they're faint, or their head is on the table, and it's like, why is your head on the table? Is there a medical issue here? And they're like, no, but then you pull them aside and you're like, what's your issue? What's happened? And they're like, well, they haven't eaten. So the first thing is like, well, why are you not eating? Because your parents are paying for you to have a school lunch, or you're getting school lunches. Why aren't you eating? And it could be a lot of stuff, like they don't like the food, or there's something, or if you run up a debt at school and you haven't paid for your lunches, you can't get your lunch. And I think school debts run up easy for lunches. Lunch now is like £12 a week, I think. And if you have 2 children and you're paying for lunches, that's already £24 for the week, times 4. Like, it starts mounting up, because we don't always know what's going on in the child's household. The child doesn't say it until maybe things come to a head or a parent lets you know, but people are really struggling. Like, they were struggling before the pandemic. And so compound that now with the pandemic, it's even more. And it's hard. It's hard. You think about the domestic abuse that has, risen, and the steps that have taken. We don't know what these young people are going through. You don't know. So again, you have to like children. In order to do this job effectively, you have to be able to have a sense of empathy. And I know not everybody's empathetic, but you have a sense of looking at that child and knowing, well, something's not quite right. And the kid likes to know that you've noticed them. Not, obviously you don't do it publicly, because this is the private matters, and you speak to them and you're like, what is it like? Well, how are you feeling? Like, what's going on, and stuff like that. And obviously they disclose, and you have to disclose, but it's a minefield out there for them, and they're already at their ages where they're so vulnerable, as it is already, to have mental health issues, or to have, there's problems at home, there's not enough food, because mainly it's about being not enough food in your household, and it's quite hard to fathom that at times. It really is. It's sad, really. Yeah.
It's insane, isn't it? I mean, why is it that much more important for people to get into teaching? Why do we need more people to think, you know what, I'm going to go get a degree and then come out of university and go get a PGCE so I can really support the future generation? Why is it that much more important now?
It's so worthwhile. It is a vocation. Teaching is a vocation, and I have to say that it is not easy, and every day brings something different. But the skill set that you learn and what you can impart to a young child is just an amazing thing. I love the fact that I'm gearing, especially Key Stage 4, you're gearing them up to go out into this world, whether stay on at sixth form or actually go to other colleges. Like, you're gearing them up, and you want them to be the best version of themselves at any given time, and you want them to be educated. My remit is, I don't care whether you like me or not, I'm here to teach you because you need these skills, and I have these skill set. So you can't talk when I'm talking, because I have the skill set and I want to give it to you. I don't want to hold it and it's a secret and I'm only going to drip it to you like that. I actually want you to have it, because I know what it's like to be so disadvantaged. Yeah, to be considered other different categories and stuff like that. It's important to come in and know that you're going to make a difference. That could be a future MP. It could be a doctor, it could be a lawyer, it could be, an entrepreneur, it could be a financial advisor. You're shaping these young people's lives. How could you not want to do that? How could you look at it and be like, no, this is so important. Think about the inspirational people that have shaped your own lives. That's what you need to think about. And think about teachers that you've had that were like that, and other teachers that you had that were great. And pick which one that you want to be. And I just say, if you're coming into teaching, coming with an open heart, they're not easy and they don't trust. And the reason that the children don't trust is because there's a high turnover of staff. So they don't trust. So you have to build. Some teachers think you're going to step in and, yay, I'm here. And the kids are going to be like, yay. No, it's a building, trusting relationship, And I think if you have those qualities and you love what you do and you're passionate about what you do and you're passionate about young people and shaping their future and investing time in them, it's so worthwhile. I can't say anymore. I've been in education for a long time, and you know me, I'm still the same. I have the same passion that I had when you first met me. I love it. I do.
Amazing. I mean, obviously, I've spoken to so many teachers over the last 6 years, and there's a point in a teacher's career. They get to about 3-4 years, and they decide whether they're going to stay in teaching or not. And there's some teachers that you leave in the 4th year after qualifying, and it's a shame, isn't it? Because it can be difficult. I think the major challenges are like sort of dealing with behaviour and progression and feeling appreciated within schools, and those are the things that have caused a lot of movement in the past when I'm speaking to teachers, or not getting the progression that they feel they deserve, but the thing is, what I think is important to remind everyone, that happens in every profession. There's a lot of being undervalued, there's a lot of being not appreciated or not getting the money you want, or and it's teaching, unfortunately, is one of those professions where it gets scrutinized. It comes under heat quite a lot, right? And it's undervalued for the level of work you have to do. It is massively undervalued in terms of people's opinions, and in some respects, people believe in monetary terms as well, And but it's about making that difference, isn't it? Unfortunately, you work for the public. You work with the taxpayers' money, don't you? And it's public money, which is quite limited, but ultimately, the future of our economy depends on obviously getting more teachers in, because there are a lot of teachers leaving the industry, and we need more teachers that care about these kids, that want to make a difference, like you, Judith. And it's a shame, because it's like you don't go into uni like thinking, I want to go become a teacher. I mean, if I could go back 10 years, I'd heavily consider it. I may not have gone into recruitment, because I had a really good experience with 30 kids on an enrichment day last week, and it's so rewarding when you get that. I mean, it was scary as hell, but getting that conversation where you've actually made an impact on somebody is so rewarding, And I mean, I just hope more and more people get into it, because, like I said, the future of our economy depends on it. And there's challenges that you've spoken about, and you've obviously spoken about the things that you've overcome in your personal life as well as your professional life. And you're still here today, and you're still making a difference for these kids. And it's remarkable. Like you're a remarkable lady, And the students that are doing the teacher training at the moment, those ones that are looking to get into doing the PGCE next year, what advice would you give them?
Do you know what? Do it, but make sure you're qualifying, you're doing your PGCE and in what you want to do. So don't be an English teacher if you know that your passion is maths. Now that might sound real silly, but people then become teachers in what they're not passionate about, and you can tell. So you coming and you're so excited, and then this child is really giving you a hard time, but they're testing you. They're young people, they're testing, and they have trust issues. And I think you cannot take it personal. Yes, it might be coming at you and directed at you like it's personal, but the thing never to do is never to engage in a battle in the class with a child. My advice would be always say to the child, if you want to have a conversation with me, we can have it. You can discuss this with me outside, and the child will take you up on that. So there's no public. No one's losing face. the child goes outside, you have a conversation with the child and you say, like, what's up? You know, what's going on? Like, what is this? And they will explain themselves. And then you will have a dialogue, because it's about having a dialogue. It's not about shouting and I've got the power and I'm going to yoga. No. Talk to the young people. They're not often talked to. They're talked at. Remember, think about teaching. You're talking at them. At. Talk to them. And when you talk to them, you'd find out so much amazing things. It's like I had a child that I taught last year, and I just said to her, like the class, like, what do you do in your spare time? And she's an acrobat in the circus. No. Very interesting. But that's because you have conversations, and then you get everybody involved. Like, what do you do? It makes it more human, and you building up such a rapport that the kids are eager to come to your class. Like, they want to come. Like, I had students who I taught last year, I'm not teaching this year. They're trying to get back into my classroom. I have to stop them from coming into my door. Like, no, your teacher's looking for you. Now, for me, that's real nice, because they're seeing the genuine article of me as a teacher. I'm firm but fair. I don't tolerate nonsense. Like, we're going to be respectful. It's a formal establishment in which we are working in. They're not allowed to speak slang. They're not allowed to come in. This is my rules. They're not allowed to speak slang. They're not allowed to come in with picks in their hair. They're not allowed to brush their hair in my class. You're not allowed to do anything apart from sit there and learn, because I don't understand why you're doing that. And when you say to the young person, like, why are you combing your hair? Because there's no breeze in the classroom. There's no breeze that took your hair away. So why are you combing it? They have to think about that. Well, why am I combing my hair? Because there's no, it's about making them think about and being responsible for their own actions. And it's about making them regulate themselves. We're not here to be like, I'm in control, you're going to do as I say, because they have that enough. We all have that enough. It is about establishing relationships where the child is working for themselves. Obviously, they think they're working for you, but they're really working for themselves to achieve at the ending of year 11 their GCSE results that's going to take them into the next phase of their life. That's what teaching is about, making sure they achieve. Because that I had a child, and he, on the SEN, social emotional behaviour, and I looked past that. Worked with him solidly. Trust me, we're going to get where you need to go. Now we're year 11. He says, Miss, thank you. He says, you told me to trust you, and I trusted you. That's it. Because I said to him, what's my biggest thing that I want for you? He says, for me to do well. I don't want anything else. Just want you to do well, because it's your future. Remember, these are young people that are going in and that are going to be bringing money into the economy. They themselves are going to be parents. You need to be as educated as you can so that you can educate your child as much as you can. It's a knock-on effect. So yes, for the economy, but procreation, because if you don't procreate, have no children, there can't be no teachers. There's no teachers. So it's about investing in them, giving them the skills that they need and the confidence that they need to be better versions of themselves. And it's not easy. It's not easy, but every child is different. I don't hold anything against any child. They're young people. I come in, every child that comes into my lesson, they come in, I'm as excited to see them as I was first period. This could be sixth period. I'm still excited to see them. I'm tired, but I'm still excited to see them. And that's what they need. They look forward to coming in, because English could be very dry sometimes, as you know. Yeah? And it could be boring, but it's how you engage with them. And discussion. Kids like to discuss. They don't have enough discussion, and discussion-based, obviously controlled. And I've taught my young people the art of debating. It might sound like, how are you teaching them the art of debating? But they just talk over each other. No one listens. But with debating, you have to take your time and listen to what the other person is saying and come back with ideas. And so that's what it's about. It's about looking at them and knowing that you're investing in their future, and that you are helping them on their academic journey for the rest of their further and higher and further education. And that's what makes me smile every day.
Fantastic. No, it's just amazing, Judith. I mean, thank you so much for taking time out and speaking on obviously the podcast. I mean, you're a remarkable woman. You know, you've obviously, you love doing what you do, and that's not changed at all in the whole 3 years that I've known you. And you make such a positive difference to these kids. I know, obviously, you've showed me emails that you've had from kids, and the difference that you make to them. So just keep doing what you're doing. You know, thank you for all the hard work you do. You know, like the teachers are massively underappreciated right now, and but this is the whole point of this podcast, you know, to create awareness for the hard work you guys are doing, and just want to say thank you, you know.
I just want to say thank you as well. I just want to say thank you from 2017. Thank you from all the times that, you know, because you've been on the other end, like you've been on the other end of the phone when I've called up and I'm like, I'm not doing this. Like, this is too much. And I'm giving it to you because I just need to offload. And then I'm fine. And then the next day we're fine, we're back to normal. So it's not that we don't have wobbles. Of course we have wobbles in any profession. But you just have to know why you're doing what you're doing. And our young people are the next generation that are going to be the prime ministers, and they're going to be the doctors and these professions. And they need the best start that they possibly can. And if you're a teacher and you want to go into teaching and you know that you want to facilitate that, then you're going to go into the right profession.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Judith. We'll leave it there. I mean, you've said exactly what we needed for you to say, really, and hopefully that encourages graduates and people that are sort of like leaving school and thinking about what they want to do with their career, and hopefully that encourages more people to look at teaching as a profession that they can do and make a difference to the future generation. And hopefully we get more teachers like you from these podcasts, you know. Yeah, awesome. But yeah, really well done. Thank you for coming on, and
thank you.
Yeah, obviously, like as always, if you need anything, I'm always here for you. But yeah, I mean, thank you so much for coming on and taking some time out to speak to me.
My pleasure, and I thank you, and I just hope that I can help any which way.
No worries. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Take care.